My name is Lauri Salovaara. I'm on the publishing board for the Free Pack, and I'm also an intern for the Carolina Journal. And today I'm interviewing Adina Safta, who's running for U.S. House of Representatives. Thank you for joining us today, Adina.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So you grew up in a communist environment in Romania. Could you tell us what that was like growing up?
Yeah, so I brought a picture just for proof. So I was born in communism in Romania in the year of the revolution. So, you know, I tell people that when I came to the United States, I appreciated everything so much because of the environment that I came from. So when you are born in a communist country and you grow up in post-communism, right, which is third world country, the development that you see, that, you know, the thriving economy that we have in the United States, none of that exists, right? So during communism, you lose your land, you lose your properties. Everything that you do is owned by the government. And so for us, like growing up, people today, they take McDonald's for granted, right? But for us, having McDonald's once a month was like a 5-star restaurant. And so that's how big of a gap and difference it is between how we live here in, you know, a country that promotes and loves and embraces freedom versus what it's like to grow up in a country and society where your power goes out at 5 o'clock. And you have to figure it out after that. So.
Wow. Do you see any similarities with the current political climate here in the States compared to your time in Romania? Absolutely.
It starts with the educational system, and I think that that's why the Democrats strategically chose our kids and chose our education to target, you know, with what's happening today, especially in Wake County, with the mandates, the children masking, and everything that they're doing is unconstitutional. You know, next week they're voting on vaccine mandates for kids. At this point, the government is controlling the children and the education, and it needs to be put back in the control of the parents, because the parents are the ones that get to make the decisions, and the elected board is elected by we the people, and we get to fire them if they don't do their job.
Yeah, and actually, so you've asked people to come to the Wake County Public School Board meeting that's happening on February 1st, and in general raised, you know, awareness of participating in local school boards. So why are education issues such as mask mandates so important to you?
Because K through 12 is the future of our generations to come, and they're the ones that are going to be the future public servants. They're the future voters. And so if we focus on just today and this election, then we are going to be living a short-term victory. If we don't focus on our children, their education, and making sure that we're protecting them and we're standing up for them, regardless if you have a child that goes to the public schools, we need to stand in unity, and we need to show that we all care about the kids, because they're the future business owners, they're the future doctors, they're the future of our country. And that is a huge amount, I mean, K through 12, that is a lot of years to come. And so we will never be able to fix our country, our nation, our state, our counties, our communities if we don't focus on the children. So February 1st is the Wake County School Board meeting. I attended the last one, and there were 10 parents in the room. Right now, the parents are outnumbered by the board. And we need to flip that, where we show up in unity. There's 1.2 million people in Wake County. I can bet that more than 10 care about their children, and even if they don't have children in their communities. So we need to show up, and we need to show that we're united, we care about the kids, and we will protect them.
Right. What is the constitutional restoration training that you mentioned on Instagram?
So I love the Constitution. I think, you know, I have notes in my Constitution. I'm very intense. But if we knew our Constitution, we would not be here today. I'm convinced. Because if you read the Constitution, we the people are protected, and, you know, we've got statues that show that. You go to DC, and I have a belief that the reason why the statues are being taken down is because they're a reminder of our freedom, and they're a reminder of the sacrifices that were made in order for us to have freedom. And so, you know, the whole CRT and, you know, teaching of really hate, and teaching kids that oppression, suppression, like all of those things that kids are being taught through CRT is swaying them away from freedom and our God-given rights. And so for me, you know, I was like, well, how do we meet halfway? We can keep CRT, but we can change it to Constitution restoration training. And I bet you if kids knew their rights and kids knew the Constitution, they would not allow what's happening to happen. And we need to teach them that. We need to embrace our Constitution. We need to defend it, protect it, and we cannot allow it to be destroyed.
Yeah. And actually, so you reached to us at the Free Pack. Why?
So, you know, K through 12 is one round, right? But I think that the college students, they're the generation that are going to show up, and they're the freedom fighters, right? And so for me, I look at our universities and I see them, chant, "Let's go Brandon," and all these other fun things. But at the end of the day, what are you doing? Are you standing up when you're in your university? Are you complying with these unconstitutional mandates? Or are you going along with them just because they're going to, eventually be over? They're not going to be over. They're going to get worse every single. I mean, N95 masks are being given out for free in Wake County. If you need one, you can go get one, And so things are getting worse. We're being asked to wear layers of masks if we're vaccinated. I mean, it is just ludicrous what's happening. And so for me, the college students, they're the masses, and they're, NC State is a huge university in my district. And we need to stand up. I mean, the students need to stand up. The students need to register to vote. Historically, students live here, but their driver's license is New Jersey. No, now we need to be involved. If you don't have a North Carolina license and you reside here, you need to go register. You need to show up at the polls. You need to vote. You need to have your voice heard, because if you don't, you're going to be a part of the history that you probably wish you never were. Right? And so the voting part is one main focus, and the other is volunteers. For our grassroots, I believe that as a small business owner, that when you're growing your campaign grassroots and you're shaking hands, I mean, we've got 745,000 people in our district out of the 1.2. And so I believe that grassroots is what builds long-term relationships. So the students are, my go-to, because they're the future, and they're also the ones that are going to knock on doors and be a part of history, really.
Yeah, and so obviously you'll have to be very active on social media to reach out to these.
Which I'm not that great at, but we're learning.
It's a challenge for sure. But so how did you hear about the Free Pack?
Instagram.
Right.
I'm not that good at it, but Instagram. So, when I decided that I was running, I went on Instagram first and on LinkedIn as well. And I just looked up Republican, keywords. NC State, and so you all came up, and I just loved the boldness in the post that you all post, and you just tell the truth, you tell it how it is, you don't really use a filter, which is how I am. For me, the whole politically correct, that to me just equates to hush hush and do as I say, and that's not how this is going to work anymore.
Oh, thank you. Judging by your political history, this is your first political race. Why now?
Why now? So my background, I was in corporate America for 16 years and left in 2020, January, most specifically, 2 months before the world collapsed, and started my own small business after 16 years of corporate America. And so my small business was helping other small businesses with their financial needs as a CFO. And so after surviving 2020 as a small business owner and seeing how badly the government handled PPP funds and SBA funds, the DMV, I mean, if you needed a change of address, they're working from home, they're essential, they're not essential. I mean, they pretty much just ruined anything they ever were running, like the IRS. Try getting the IRS on the phone, And so being able to see that at such a, in corporate America, you're almost not exposed to all of it, right? But as a small business owner, I was the one in the weeds helping my clients with the PPP, making sure that they're on a strict schedule. And so when I saw how badly the government was handling our funds, I knew that in order for me to do what I love to do, which is be a public servant, I needed to become an actual public servant in the government so that we can actually have say in how we handle the funds and what processes we use. And so I decided that this was going to be the only way. And so I ran into one more fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's definitely been a hectic time for everyone involved. As a U.S. representative, if you're elected, what will you do to mitigate inflation?
So, I get that question. I get questions about when you win. But for me, I believe right now I'm in a job interview for the next few months, right, until elections, and the work needs to be done now. So, I mean, I'm actively in the community working and looking at ways of, yesterday a company announced that they're leaving their manufacturing, they're closing, they're shutting down, right? We need to protect the manufacturing companies that are producing in the United States. We need to stop focusing on things getting shipped here. We need to make and build and do things in America, made in the USA, but we also need to be proactive in supporting those companies so that they don't leave or they don't close because we're buying everything from China. inflation is at 7% right now, which is ludicrous.
Yeah, yeah, it is quite something. How will North Carolinians benefit from your time as representative?
I am a freedom fighter. I believe that no matter what side of your political, your views are, I truly believe and have hope that if you're a patriot, if you're a citizen, if you're just a community member, you love your freedom. And for me, coming from a country where my parents brought us here because of the one thing we would never lose, freedom, and seeing how quickly we're losing it, I will do everything in my power to fight for freedom, to fight against mandates, to make sure that businesses are protected and them running their private businesses, not the government telling them how to run their business. And historically, I've done those things. I've never, in corporate America, I was always the one going against the grain. Why? Because I wanted to help my clients. And so electing somebody who is a CFO, we need people who understand budgets to be in charge of budgets, not political, representatives that is their background is politics to make a decision on a budget that they are not even really educated in doing so.
Yeah. Do you expect more candidates in your race from the 5th district?
So for the first 2 months when I decided to run, I was basically, everybody that I met with was being talked out of running. And so that gave me more fire. And I was like, yep, every time somebody told me not to run, I got more fire under my feet and I wanted to run even more. So based on the split of the 37% of being Republican in this district, I've heard that nobody else is going to register. However, a great business person is going to expect that 10 more people jump in, right? And so we, the Patriots, need to come together and be proactive in the primaries, which right now are scheduled for May 17th. And we need to act as if there is somebody else running against us. So it's important that we register to vote and that we are registered as Republicans so that we can vote in the primaries as Republicans, because that would be the worst way to lose a race.
Right. So if the Republican Party gains control of both the House and the Senate in the coming midterms, will you propose and support legislation that will curtail some of the existing vaccine mandates and mask mandates?
Regardless, if we take majority, I will fight against anything that is unconstitutional. If it's not in the Constitution, we're fighting it. And we're fighting it now. We're not waiting for anything. Anything that, Joe is trying to pass currently, like with the vaccine mandates, those things are not getting passed. And the representatives that are supporting them and they're failing at everything that they're trying to pass, we need to not elect those officials. And also, too, Republicans that are standing for mandates, we need to not allow them to be representing the people of our country. And so, yes, I will fight against any mandates. I believe we should not comply with anything that is not in the Constitution.
Okay. With the ongoing conflicts concerning the People's Republic of China and now recently more with Russia, which of the two nations should Americans be concerned about the most?
Yeah, so I mean, both are critical. And, I don't know if you read recently, I believe it was yesterday, that we're deploying Fort Bragg, sending a lot of our troops overseas. A lot of the decisions that are being made right now are just not good, right? And so I think that it is a parallel. However, from a North Carolina and more local standpoint, I think that we need to research and look at where we are right now and what China's effect is on our state. I mean, they are buying our land, they're buying our farms, our pigs, right? Our hog farms, our tobacco. The headquarters of the Tobacco International of China is in Raleigh. And so we need to pay attention to those things and realize that China owns a lot of North Carolina, and the Chinese Communist Party is very much so here, and we just need to know and understand how that affects us, because if we are allowing our real estate to be bought, which currently there's you can research it and find the proof in the pudding. But if we allow our real estate to be purchased, if we allow our supply chain to be taken over by China, then we, the people, are no longer free, because we get to listen to a communist country. So I think that from a day-to-day standpoint, China is a big threat, locally and nationally. But
yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought, considering these days it seems both Democrats and Republicans are now thinking that Russia is the biggest threat, especially in this time with the issue with concerning.
They're both big threats, yeah.
Yeah. So with Biden's low approval rating among young independents and Democrats, what's your message to disaffected college students? How will you appeal to them?
So I'm very big on accountability. And so I encourage every Democrat, Republican, unaffiliated, every person that wakes up with a pulse and a citizenship to ask themselves this question. What has Joe done from the moment that he was, not elected, he took office? What has he done since then? Do those meet your expectations? If you have any hesitance where they don't meet your expectation and you don't like paying twice, double for your gas and double for your food and everything else, and you're not okay with what he's done, promises made and not kept, right? The mandates, the spread, none of it has worked out. So you have to ask yourself that question and hold those people accountable. And if your answer is no, he has failed me, then you should look at all of the representatives all the way down and see who supports him. Then they should be out completely. And so for me, people need to do their research. I can say what I say, but people need to do the research and they need to hold us accountable because we work for you, we work for the people. And so if you have hesitance, my office is open, I'm always downtown, people can come interview me. I love freedom. So if you love freedom, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican. We need to stand up and we the people need to take control of what's ours to begin with.
All right, thank you so much. Did you have any other messages for the audience listening in?
So just one other thing, we're rolling out a series called Let Freedom Brew. It's a 14-week series and it really boils down to educational. And so every week we have a different topic. This week is our first one. It's on Saturdays and it's from 10 to 12. Let Freedom Brew, there's coffee. And so on our website, we have information on it and Instagram as well. But every week, we're going to talk about the Constitution. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about our economy, things that people should be concerned about and want to know about. And we'll have guest speakers. Like this week, we're going to have a parent from the Wake County school system that's going to come and speak in reference to how her experience has been as a parent, mitigating, being a mom and trying to help your kids and fighting against, the unconstitutional board that's currently sitting. So I think it's going to be fun, and so I hope that people will join us for that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Adina. Thank you for joining us in, and thank you for listening to our interview.